Apron tied, sleeves rolled, until the first shot rang out. Then he was shouting orders, guiding everyone to safety like he'd done it 100 times before. For 18 months, the staff at Mercy General Hospital had treated Staff Sergeant Carlos Chef Ramirez like another veteran struggling to adapt to civilian life, content with kitchen work because he couldn't handle the demands of modern healthcare environments and high-pressure medical situations. They saw his methodical approach to meal preparation and assumed he lacked the quick thinking necessary for emergency response, witnessed his calm demeanor during hospital crises, and mistook experience for indifference to the chaos that paralyzed other civilian employees. What they couldn't see beneath his chef's uniform were hands that had coordinated evacuations under enemy fire in Kandahar, led tactical withdrawals that saved entire medical units from Taliban ambushes, and earned 3 Bronze Stars for valor during combat operations that extracted wounded soldiers from kill zones where hesitation meant death. Ramirez had spent 10 years as a combat medic specialist with the 75th Ranger Regiment, conducting medical evacuations in hostile territory, where his leadership under fire had saved the lives of 247 wounded American soldiers who would have died without his tactical expertise and unwavering courage under the most dangerous combat conditions. Welcome to Silent Salute, where we reveal that America's most experienced crisis leaders often work in quiet civilian jobs, their life-saving expertise hidden beneath routine duties, while their combat-tested leadership skills remain dormant until disaster strikes. Before we share this incredible story of heroism emerging when lives hang in the balance, tell us in the comments about a time when someone's true character was revealed during an emergency. And if you believe that real leaders are forged in the crucible of life and death situations, hit that subscribe button to support our mission of honoring those whose courage saves lives when others freeze in fear. Mercy General Hospital operated as one of the region's busiest trauma centers, treating gunshot victims, car accident casualties, and medical emergencies that tested the skills and composure of healthcare professionals trained to save lives under pressure while maintaining the clinical detachment necessary for effective patient care. Kitchen Supervisor Maria Efficiency Santos managed food service operations with corporate precision that ensured meals reached patients on schedule, but she viewed Ramirez's assignment to her department as charity employment for someone whose military background hadn't translated into marketable civilian skills or healthcare expertise. Ramirez, you've been working in food service for over a year without expressing interest in advancing to positions that would utilize whatever leadership experience you gained during military service. Are you planning to spend your entire civilian career in the kitchen, or do you have ambitions for more meaningful healthcare work? Ramirez continued preparing patient meals with the attention to detail of someone who had learned that proper nutrition could mean the difference between recovery and death, understanding that every aspect of patient care contributed to healing outcomes and medical success rates. Ma'am, nutrition plays a critical role in patient recovery and healing processes. These meals support medical treatment and patient morale, and someone needs to ensure they meet the dietary requirements that enable successful treatment outcomes. Dietary technician James Fast Food Williams, recently hired based on his restaurant experience and ambitious plans for advancement within hospital administration, couldn't understand why anyone with military leadership background would remain satisfied with food preparation when management opportunities existed throughout the healthcare system. Ramirez, I don't understand why you're content with kitchen work when you could be applying for administrative positions that require real leadership experience. This food service job is what they give people who can't handle patient care or medical responsibilities. Ramirez's response reflected the deep satisfaction of someone who had already demonstrated leadership under conditions that exceeded most people's worst nightmares, understanding that meaningful service often meant supporting others' success, rather than seeking personal recognition and career advancement. Williams' hospital operations depend on support services that ensure medical staff can focus on patient care. Whether you're treating patients or preparing their meals, your contribution to healing and recovery serves the same humanitarian objectives. The harassment began when other kitchen staff, influenced by supervisors who questioned Ramirez's apparent lack of career ambition and competitive drive, decided that direct pressure might motivate him to seek advancement opportunities that would demonstrate commitment to professional development and healthcare excellence. Food service worker Michael "Microwave" Rodriguez organized work assignments designed to test Ramirez's stress tolerance and leadership capabilities, hoping to either expose his supposed limitations or force him to acknowledge that kitchen work was beneath someone claiming military leadership experience. Ramirez, if your military background gave you real leadership skills, you should be able to handle the pressure of running this kitchen during emergency situations. We're going to see if you can actually lead, or if you're just another veteran who talks about service without proving anything. Ramirez recognized the workplace testing as harassment, but adapted his performance to exceed every challenge while maintaining the professional composure that had characterized his combat medical service. Understanding that mission accomplishment required overcoming hostile opposition rather than engaging in counterproductive conflicts. The psychological pressure escalated when hospital personnel began questioning Ramirez's military background and speculating about service record issues that would explain his apparent contentment with employment that required no medical training or healthcare expertise. Nursing assistant Lisa "Gossip" Chun, whose own career advancement had been limited by performance issues, joined the speculation about Ramirez's background and motivations for accepting what appeared to be underemployment disguised as stable veteran placement in healthcare support services. "I heard Ramirez couldn't handle combat stress and got discharged early, so they stuck him in the kitchen where he can't hurt anyone." Nobody with real military leadership experience chooses food service when they could be working in medical departments that actually save lives. The rumors spread throughout the hospital, with staff increasingly treating Ramirez as a veteran who had somehow failed to meet military standards and was serving out his civilian career in a position that required no skill, responsibility, or contribution to meaningful medical operations and patient care. Food service supervisor Rodriguez, whose campaign to expose Ramirez's supposed inadequacies had been escalating for months, decided that more aggressive tactics were necessary to force him into mistakes that would justify documenting his unsuitability for continued hospital employment. "Ramirez, I'm tired of carrying dead weight in this kitchen. If you can't handle real healthcare work, maybe you should consider employment where mediocrity is acceptable and food service doesn't require the standards of excellence that characterize medical facilities." Ramirez understood the implications of Rodriguez's harassment, but chose not to respond with information about his actual military background, knowing that discussing combat medical operations might violate patient privacy expectations and professional boundaries that separated military experience from civilian healthcare environments. The crisis that would reveal Ramirez's true capabilities began at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, when 3 gunmen entered Mercy General's main lobby and began shooting patients, visitors, and medical staff in what became the deadliest hospital attack in the region's history. The first shots echoed through the cardiac wing where Ramirez was preparing special dietary meals for post-surgical patients, immediately triggering combat instincts and tactical awareness that had been dormant during 18 months of peaceful civilian employment and routine food service duties. "Active shooter, multiple hostiles, civilian casualties," Ramirez muttered to himself, his military training automatically assessing the tactical situation while other kitchen staff stood paralyzed by fear and confusion about appropriate emergency response procedures. The hospital's security protocols, designed for medical emergencies and routine disturbances, proved completely inadequate for coordinated armed attack that threatened the lives of patients, medical staff, and visitors who had no training or experience with active shooter situations and tactical response requirements. Ramirez immediately began organizing evacuation procedures for the cardiac wing, using his combat medical experience to prioritize patient movement based on medical condition, mobility limitations, and tactical considerations that minimized exposure to hostile fire while ensuring critical patients received necessary medical support during emergency relocation. "Listen carefully," Ramirez commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had led men through combat operations where following orders meant survival and hesitation meant death. "We're evacuating all patients to the east stairwell. Mobile patients first, then wheelchair patients, then bedbound patients with portable equipment." Nurse Patricia "Panic" Martinez, paralyzed by terror and unable to process the reality of armed attack in their medical facility, found herself following Ramirez's orders automatically, responding to leadership competence that cut through chaos and provided clear direction during crisis that threatened everyone's survival. Ramirez, how do you know what to do? This isn't military combat. This is a hospital shooting, and we need to call security or police instead of trying to handle this ourselves. Ramirez's response reflected years of experience coordinating medical evacuations under enemy fire, understanding that survival required immediate action based on tactical knowledge rather than waiting for external assistance that might arrive too late to save lives. Nurse Martinez, tactical principles apply regardless of environment. We need to move these patients away from the threat while maintaining medical care. Security and police will handle the shooters, but we need to handle patient safety right now. The evacuation of 63 cardiac patients required Ramirez to coordinate medical equipment, pharmaceutical supplies, and nursing staff, while maintaining tactical awareness of shooter movements and hospital security response that could affect evacuation routes and patient safety during emergency relocation procedures. His leadership during the crisis demonstrated combat-tested decision-making skills that enabled medical staff to function effectively under extreme stress, transforming panicked healthcare workers into an organized evacuation team that prioritized patient welfare while adapting to changing tactical conditions. Dr. Williams, maintain 4 lines during patient transport. Nurse Chun, coordinate oxygen equipment for patients who need respiratory support. Technician Rodriguez, establish communication with emergency services and provide updates on our location and patient status. The evacuation proceeded with military precision, as Ramirez coordinated simultaneous patient movement, medical care, and tactical positioning that protected vulnerable patients while enabling medical staff to continue providing necessary care under conditions that would have paralyzed personnel without crisis leadership experience. Hospital Administrator Dr. Jennifer Command Davis, monitoring emergency response from the hospital's Incident Command Center, watched security cameras that showed Ramirez coordinating the most successful patient evacuation in hospital history, while law enforcement was still securing the building perimeter. Who is that man coordinating the cardiac wing evacuation? His leadership and tactical awareness exceed our emergency response protocols and demonstrate expertise that suggests extensive crisis management training. The shooters were neutralized by law enforcement after 47 minutes of terror that claimed 12 lives and wounded 31 innocent people. But Ramirez's evacuation had saved every cardiac patient under his protection, including several who would have died without continued medical support during emergency relocation. Emergency Medical Services Coordinator Captain Robert Rescue Thompson, reviewing hospital security footage and evacuation procedures, realized that Ramirez's tactical leadership had prevented a much larger casualty count among the hospital's most vulnerable patients. That kitchen worker coordinated a medical evacuation that saved dozens of lives. His crisis leadership and tactical decision-making exceeded our trained emergency response teams and demonstrated expertise that suggests extensive experience with life-and-death situations under hostile conditions. The investigation that followed revealed Ramirez's actual military background and combat medical experience, transforming everyone's understanding of his service history and explaining his instinctive response to crisis situations that had paralyzed trained healthcare professionals. Dr. Davis, reviewing Ramirez's military service record and combat medical achievements, realized that her hospital had unknowingly employed a decorated combat veteran whose crisis leadership capabilities exceeded most emergency response professionals and medical administrators. Mr. Ramirez, your military service record shows extensive combat medical experience and tactical leadership under fire. Your evacuation of the cardiac wing demonstrated expertise that saved lives and prevented casualties that would have made this tragedy even worse. Ramirez's response reflected the humility of someone whose military training had prepared him for exactly this type of crisis, understanding that effective leadership meant focusing on mission accomplishment rather than seeking recognition for capabilities that should be used to protect others. Dr. Davis, my military medical training prepared me to coordinate patient care under hostile conditions. When the shooting started, those patients became my responsibility, and my job was to get them to safety while maintaining their medical care. The recognition ceremony that Dr. Davis organized became a teaching moment for the entire hospital, demonstrating how military experience provided irreplaceable crisis leadership capabilities and how dismissing veterans based on apparent underemployment could overlook extraordinary expertise that emerged during emergencies. Staff Sergeant Ramirez represents the kind of crisis leadership that every healthcare facility needs, but rarely recognizes, Dr. Davis announced during the hospital's emergency response review. His military combat medical experience provided capabilities that saved lives when our standard procedures proved inadequate for this type of crisis. The kitchen staff who had questioned Ramirez's capabilities and harassed him about his apparent lack of ambition found themselves struggling to understand how they had unknowingly been working alongside a decorated combat veteran whose crisis leadership had saved dozens of lives during the hospital's darkest hour. Supervisor Santos, realizing that her assessment of Ramirez's potential had been based on complete ignorance of his military background and combat experience, approached him with obvious professional respect and newfound appreciation for capabilities she had failed to recognize. "Ramirez, I owe you an apology. Your military service explains everything I couldn't understand about your composure and attention to detail. You were bringing combat-tested leadership to our kitchen while I was questioning your career motivation and professional ambition." Ramirez used his recognition to establish crisis response training programs that combined military tactical expertise with healthcare emergency protocols, creating educational opportunities that prepared medical staff for active shooter situations and other emergencies that required tactical leadership and coordinated response. The most important lesson from this situation, Ramirez explained during crisis leadership seminars that became standard throughout the healthcare system, is that emergency response requires tactical thinking and coordinated leadership. Whether you're evacuating wounded soldiers or hospital patients, lives depend on clear decision-making and organized execution under extreme pressure. The hospital attack had provided Ramirez with the opportunity to demonstrate that military combat experience could enhance civilian emergency response while saving lives that would have been lost without tactical leadership and crisis management expertise developed under the most dangerous conditions. Years later, when Staff Sergeant Ramirez advanced to Emergency Response Coordinator while continuing his food service management, his story continued inspiring healthcare workers who understood that true leadership capabilities often remained hidden until crisis revealed their life-saving potential. His example reminded everyone that in healthcare, as in all civilian organizations, the most critical expertise often belonged to people whose military experience exceeded formal training and whose practical knowledge had been earned through situations where leadership failures meant casualties rather than administrative problems and policy violations. The moment when the first shot rang out had lasted only seconds, but its impact continued for years, demonstrating that true crisis leadership often resided in the people others dismissed as overqualified for their current positions, and that sometimes the employees who seemed content with humble work were the ones whose military background had prepared them to save lives when others froze in terror. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever witnessed someone's hidden capabilities emerge during a crisis that revealed their true character and life-saving expertise? Have you worked alongside people whose quiet competence concealed extraordinary leadership skills that only emerged when lives were at stake? Tell us in the comments about moments when crisis revealed hidden heroes and transformed your understanding of someone's true capabilities and potential. And if you believe that real leaders are forged through adversity and that military experience provides irreplaceable crisis management skills, hit that subscribe button to support our channel's mission of honoring those whose courage saves lives when others need them most. Nobody calls Ramirez just a cook anymore. Not after watching him coordinate a life-saving evacuation while gunshots echoed through the halls and chaos threatened to claim innocent lives.